Hi everyone, welcome to a new pod. Today we have Chaitanya. Chaitanya is a 100x dev student. He has not yet graduated from college. He'll graduate next year. He also is in NAIT.
MAIT.
MAIT. He studies in Maharaja Agir Sen, and I think I could be wrong on this, but I think he has cracked the highest offer now, which is 80 lakhs per annum, 100k US, with a 75k base and a bonus that will stretch at least 25k or more. He and I've been connected for over a year now. In fact, you might see an older pod where he talked about his internship journey, where he got a 40,000 a month, rupees a month ka internship from an Irish startup. That's when the first time we connected.
Yep.
Then he came to the Super 30 office once and sort of barged his way in and started to slowly learn Web3. In Super 30, he got 2 referrals. The first one was a 1.5k a month offer. Him and another student got it, but that company had extremely bad work-life balance, and we will talk about that a bit. Then he got into 𝗟𝗶𝗶𝘀, which is another Web3 company that one of my batchmates sort of started in Dubai. 3 people got there from Super 30, I think 4, and he was one of them. He was working there while also aggressively learning and building proof of work for Solana. This happened, I think, in February, and now this month he got into another Solana company for this offer. 𝗟𝗶𝗀𝘀, which is a fairly new startup but extremely fast-growing startup in Solana. He'll talk to his complete journey, basically a good boot camp or a rundown on how can you get into a Solana company from India with a extremely high remote offer. That's the high level. With that, Chaitanya, welcome.
Thank you, Bhaiya. So, should I start with my journey?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I started learning C++, data structures and algorithms because that is all I knew. I initially didn't even want to get into software development, let alone Web3. I knew high level about blockchains, cryptocurrencies because so one interesting fact was that I used to think that my college was very bad, but it seemingly had good folks, good alumni networks. The problem with the network was that it wasn't interconnected. So in my first year itself, I had an orientation call, and there Polygon's founder Sandeep Nailwal was present. And
who's your alumni?
He's my alumni. Yeah. So I got to know that he's a big shot, right? So I thought okay, there is a little bit. so there is scope in this industry, so I can go deep into it. But I didn't have any interest in coding, didn't even know how to declare a variable, let alone code in Rust, write smart contracts which handle money at scale. So in my first year, it was mostly online. Didn't build a lot of personal offline connections with folks in my college. But I had this IIT trauma at the back of my mind because I was very aggressively trying to get into IIT. When COVID happened, it thwarted all my IIT prep, and that was it. First year, I was thinking that, okay, I'll do GATE eventually. I'll try to get into automobile engineering and try to do automobile engineering. Second year, I joined a group, sort of, in my 4th semester, and that group had developers that were coding projects or building projects since one guy was building projects after his 12th ended. He didn't really want to get into an IIT, but he just started coding MERN stack projects and started learning JavaScript back then. And so I knew there was a clear path there, but I didn't even know fundamentals of coding back then. So I started learning C++ and data structures and algorithms because that is what I knew. Everyone was talking about C++ कर लो भाई, DSA कर लो, you will get sorted. ये same चीज़ मैंने बोली थी पिछले pod में भी. But C++ DSA कर लो and you'll get in somewhere, right? So I started doing it, liked it, but क्या कहते हैं, I got bored of it pretty quickly after by the end of my second year. Also, one thing clicked in my head that not a lot of companies come into my college, even though the alumni network and all is solid, but not a lot of companies come into my college, so this won't take me the places I want to go. So then I started doing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, that whole MERN stack journey. By the end of my second year, learned React in the gap I had between second year and third year, and started building projects from third year itself. Third year was entirely full stack. I landed a remote internship by the end of my third year in an Irish startup remotely from India. That was my inflection point, I think. I reached that startup's founder. That was my first proper technical internship. I had done some scammy internships before this, which were not paying anything, yada. So that was my first proper technical internship. Learned Golang a bit, but not to a very good level in that startup. And Yeah, went from there. By this point I had started learning about Solidity a bit, because I just searched up some roadmap videos on Web3, and Solidity was the recommended language to start blockchain development. So I started doing that. Then I had my pod with you, and I got to know about this thing called Solana. So he basically recommended me that EVM, try to get into non-EVM chains. The entry barrier is lower there because they are fresher chains like Sui, Aptos, Solana, and start picking up languages, or basically start learning Rust or basically something like that. So then I knew about blockchains high level. I had this Solidity skill at my behest, and then I basically asked him, re-pitched an idea to him that let me lead Tiplink and let's start doing student-led projects in cohort 3, because you won't have the bandwidth to review each and every PR, dispense bounties and all that with teaching and then Super 30 and 10 things, right? So I just pitched that idea. He liked it. Student-led projects started from there. I started leading Tiplink. That was a very good teaching experience for me about how to handle contributors or teams in an open source project. That was a really good proof of work, because via that I got multiple offers, let's say. One offer tanked. Let's not talk about that. The second offer, by this point, due to that first offer, I had lost my internship.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. You should, I don't know, maybe tell people can learn from it.
Yeah, I would not name the company or the people, but I had this offer, $1,200 US, subject to increment, and basically they said, let's do a 1-month trial. We like your profile, we like your projects, and the founders had startups on the side. So they were 2 founders, they had startups on the side. So they basically said, if you do well here, we will also take you to the other, project. That's how it started. I got my first proper full-time remote job, but the founders basically ghosted me for 2 months. I was at my lowest then because they tweeted about it and I retweeted about it. Everyone engaged on it. I was very hyped. My parents were happy that I was starting 4th year at this point, and I was very happy that I have a 1 lakh rupee job. I thought, okay, I can do this right now, and by the end of the 4th year, I might grow in this role, or I might grow in some other company, right? So I can show this, and this is pretty good leverage to show to other companies to, let's say, crack a $3,000 offer next. But basically they ghosted me for 2 months. I lost my internship because of that tweet. Lost my PPO, lost my internship. I just had Tiplink to show back then. Started doing some hackathons, collaborated with some friends, a mutual acquaintance of ours. Worked on that project with her for some time, and yeah, that was a good journey.
So let me summarize this journey before Super 30. So this is like right when we're starting Super 30, is when he's doing an internship at an Irish startup, and he got into a Web3 company, but then they tweeted that he's joining them, but didn't end up, giving the offer finally. So he lost the Irish company offer as well, because उन्होंने बोला तुमने तो tweet कर दिया, you're going to your other place. So he left. He had to leave his original internship, and यहाँ भी नहीं मिली. He was working briefly with one of our friends on a different blockchain, but again some Web3 stuff. And then came the Super 30 grind, when he was I think traveling 2 hours a day to come to the office, and was one of the very exhausted people. मतलब शक्ल पे दिख जाता था कि he's very exhausted all the time. And of course one of the people in the referral chain from September, October onwards.
Yep. So I got referred into Swifey. That was my first company. I worked on their app from the ground up. In that 2.5 months, I learned a whole set of things. Like people ask how to learn things, right? I always tell them about Swifey, because I learned a lot during that grind phase. I was working 17 hours a day, 16 hours a day consecutively, and yeah, I was exhausted by the end. I left that company because of work-life balance. I was earning pretty good then. He referred me. One of the other students got in. He's a very good friend now. And he also worked on Tiplink with me, by the way. He worked
really?
Yeah, he worked on the SDK for Tiplink.
Got it.
For integrating it with other websites, right? So I knew him pretty well. So I was hired for a MERN stack role, but had to work on React Native. Ended up working on Flutter and Python and Rust. Had to work on AI agents and learned a lot in that 2.5 months phase. I thank that company and that team lead because I learned a lot. It was a very self-driven learning phase, and I built up a lot of grit of this is not getting fixed, but I have to get it fixed today, so I'll get it fixed today by any means possible, right? So that grit got built up. in that company. So
like you were right. I don't know if it was primarily, but you were writing a lot of smart contracts or
one smart contract that was a pump fund bonding curve contract. So I looked at pump fund, looked at a lot of pump fund implementations, just wrote 4 basic endpoints, 4 basic functions, and just wrote that program from scratch. I just took up the charge because I was getting feedback back then that ये बंदा ownership ज़्यादा नहीं लेता है, and that felt like a kick in the gut for me because I was working really hard, and I realized कि I have to be visible with my work as well. That is one way to grow in companies. So I just took up the charge कि okay, no one else knows Solana, no one else knows programs. I also knew Solana a little bit. I had written, AMM's contract, simple program, vault, escrow, simple stuff. But I took up the charge that I will write the contract. Okay. And ended up writing the contract in 1 week, got it audited for 1 week, passed most checks, had some feedback. I was covering the base points very well. I had a back and forth with ChatGPT, Claude, going through docs very aggressively and writing that program. And yeah, that taught me a lot. Got it audited. It was approved. We deployed it to mainnet while I was leaving. Left that company because I was very exhausted. But one thing at this point was that I met Bhaiya after, कि I have left that company. I'm leaving that company. मेरा हो गया. I can't be exhausted anymore. But I knew कि कुछ ना कुछ हो जाएगा. I had this in the back of the mind कि okay, I'm not going to stay unemployed or stay in that same rut again and again because I have a lot of things to show now, and I had that confidence built up pretty well. So even while joining Wildcard, I was like कि 1 महीने कुछ नहीं करूँगा मैं. But I ended up joining Wildcard in 20-25 days, and I was very relieved, obviously, after that offer. But I was also very semi कि ठीक है भाई हो जाएगा. But I was not sitting at campus placements were on for the last 5 months back then, and I didn't sit in campus placements. Companies were coming, like Zeta came to our campus, T-Shaw came to our campus, but I didn't sit in those placements. I was like, I'll build proof of work, get into a Web3 company again, and go from there. Then we went to Roorkee for that IIT alumni thing that you had. We went there, all of us went there for convocation, and so Satyam reached out to me कि okay, you have worked on Rust in a program that you say, you have worked in Web3 companies, and he basically asked Bhaiya कि do you think we can refer him? I said ideal candidate, has worked in Web3, knows backend, frontend, full stack stuff, and has the basis covered, has Rust ka mental model, and I also or Rust ke through I was able to blitz because I had that C++ ka mental model, of how to allocate memory, stack, heap, वगैरह. Then I got referred to that company. First time writing async backends. I was terrified कि Rust में backend कैसे लिखूंगा because Rust is up there, right? Everyone thinks कि Rust. But like after passing that interview, going through that interview, explaining how I would implement an indexer, I got in and I realized कि भाई API ही लिखनी थी, कुछ ज़्यादा था नहीं.
Right.
People make things very big. Like जितना scary होती नहीं है चीजें, they make it seem very big. So that was one thing I learned there.
And so your first job was just building an indexer on top of something else.
Yes.
Okay.
So we were working on a smart wallet, and they needed token data and indexer infra built for every app. If they want to iterate on multiple apps, they should ideally have an indexer in-house, right? To track any kind of data they want on the blockchain. So first task was to build an indexer. That was a blocker that they had for 3-4 weeks now. I came and solved it in 2 to 3 weeks and fixed that. Went through the trial. The trial was building an MVP of the indexer. That was working pretty well. Got in that company, coordinated with Helios a bit about, okay, you're missing these swaps, and realized that, okay, this is not the most ideal approach. Webhooks we were using. That is not the most ideal approach to build an indexer. Let's shift to something else. By then, we started working on another project called, it was a mini app on Warpcast. Built that from the ground up, learned how base and index. I also wrote the indexer for base then in that company.
Which I would assume was simpler.
It was very simple because it was just block-based polling, right? After that, I just had to track withdrawals and deposits in that contract. So it is very simple. You just put up a listener and track for wallet deposits, withdrawals, and maintain an account mapping, right? So it was very simple. Built that, worked with them for that project, and then I led the Explorer project with them. That was a very good journey. Like I liked building and taking ownership of things by this point. And then I just saw this tweet by Tommy. He's a co-founder in XO, and I reached out to him that, hey, you're hiring for Solana developers, expecting a ghosting, because that's all I had till this point. That I got ghosted like 50 times till this point after reaching out on Twitter to people. So I was expecting another ghosting, especially in a big company. Then joined now. So it started as a simple Twitter reach out, which is insane. I used to think that doesn't happen. It happens. So I just reached out on Twitter. They were trying to fill up that role for the last 3-4 months.
Okay.
Went through a simple introductory call, culture fit call. They liked my work. They said that you're young. I had a concern that I got turned down into Doro Labs and the lab behind Pitch Network and those kind of companies, because I didn't have on-paper experience, right? By this point, like I had 1 year of experience in multiple places, but I didn't have on-paper 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience. So I was expecting another turn down, but they basically said that we have worked with amazing engineers who are 19, and we don't care about on-paper experience. We care about how gritty you are. Do you have the qualities to become an excellent engineer? We'll teach you. And then they are experienced people. So I just reached out to them, had an introductory call. They liked my profile, they liked my work, and they moved me on. So like a thing about good companies or good startups, fast-moving startups or fast-moving companies is if they like the candidate, they'll move you instantly. Like this 100K or whatever, this journey happened in 10 days, which is insane. I have had back and forth with companies for months, or for 1.5 months on end. But like this, for a very smaller offer compared to this offer. But they liked my work, so they just moved me instantly. Like after the introductory call, even in the introductory call, he just said, I like your work. I'll move you on to the next round, which was a program architecture round, which I had with his brother. I did that program architecture round. I had to explain a simple staking contract, explain that, how to create pools, withdraw, redeem, stuff like that, and explain the account model, explain how states will work in that in 40-45 minutes. And then he basically liked my intuition, corrected me on some things or suggested me some things. Like we went through a problem that, let's say you have to add weights to a staking contract. How will you add that? So I added that, and he was like super impressive. Let's say you want to add token 2022 to it. And I was building from a base of SPL token program. So he said, let's say you want to add token 2022 to it. How will you add that? So token 2022 has something called token extensions. So I have used or interacted with token 2022 ki crate thodi si. So I just had that intuition and explained that in the whole 1 hour. So he liked it. After 50 minutes of the call, they instantly moved me to the next round. Okay. And asked me, let's schedule another interview. This will be the final round. And by this point, I had this in the back of the mind ki after joining, I have a two-week work trial, but they just removed that criteria by the end. In the final interview I was giving, I had to live code a contract, a simple redeem instruction in a vault contract. I coded that out and they liked it. They gave me a test. It was working, compiling. 2 errors that I forgot to capitalize accounts in the #hashDerives macro, and I was importing something incorrectly. Like I was importing it from token program, but I had to import it from token 2022. That was the only 2 things that were left by the end of 50 minutes. And they just gave me a bunch of tests. The build was working. They gave me a bunch of tests. Tests were working. Everything was working. I had all the bases covered. I was pretty confident by this point that ho jayega. And then they basically said, we'll reach out to you. This was Friday. They said, we'll reach out to you by next week, early next week, or basically next week. They reached out to me on Saturday that, hey, congrats, we'd like to extend an offer, yada, yada, yada. I just accepted it on the spot. Ho gaya, done. And I just, what else to share?
No negotiations?
No, nothing. It was straight, this offer, Manka accepted it. Done. No negotiations.
Pretty cool one. I think people can learn a lot. I think a lot of people are even you, I would say, like 6 months ago, you were just starting salon. I think a lot of people are there. You were doing a lot of practice before the interview. You were writing a lot of contracts. You told me कि मैं 10 बार लिख लिया था, and then they asked the same.
Yes, I had written, basic contracts and this pump and bonding curve contract by then. I had written a stable coin ka simple sa contract by then. I tried to integrate oracles into it by the side while working in Wildcard full time, while handling some other stuff, some other work साथ में. So I was leading the Explorer there, ये कर रहा था, but I knew कि I had to constantly keep learning. So, and I started learning or writing programs 6 months ago. I knew a bit of RPC stuff or client-side integration, interaction stuff before that due to Tiplink and some basic wallet projects, but programs and Rust just started 6 months ago. So I had very basic contracts written by this point, but before the interview, the whole day I wrote the contract that I explained in the program architecture interview. I wrote that. I wrote the staking contract. I wrote AMM's vaults ka contract, escrow ka contract, bar. So I wrote that each contract 2 times a day at least before the interview. And then when the interview happened, I was pretty chill that okay, this is second nature to me by that point. So yeah,
makes sense. Okay, I think the other thing would be you've shared a few other companies that you're interviewing for. So it seems like at least you're getting reached out a lot, even before you got here, even before you had any Twitter cloud. How is that happening? I know another person, same things, like he's juggling multiple offers, all of similar ranges, thinking of moonlighting. Why is it that a lot of people are not able to get that? Like, what circles are you in? Who are you following on Twitter?
So I get reached out on Twitter because I have my portfolio linked. I have it in my headline. I have it in my headline that I've worked on these places, so they can just directly go to that Twitter. You have to make think of it from a recruiter's point of view. Or let's say I am scouting someone. If I want to connect someone somewhere, I would like to have the experience that I just click on one link or click on one thing and I have everything in front of me, right? That the person has worked on. So I try to make that experience very simple for the recruiter or this other person.
And what are these projects? Tiplink, Wi-Fi, so just all the Web3 proof of work you have.
All the Web3 proof of work I have. Some programs that I have written. Like before getting into Wildcard, I had to build a Rust backend async muscle, right? So I told him that I'll start writing your exchange in Rust.
Okay.
So I had that written in Rust. I just had one thing left, which was the WebSocket layer thoda sa, and JSON snapshotting of, order books to S3. That's all. But like the core order book matching engine, everything was written. So that was a pretty solid thing that if an engineer can write that, tests were written, people can just clone that, test it out, and if that is working, then it's a pretty solid green flag or signal for the other person that this is working. So that was done. Other projects would be ki thoda sa Moonstack TypeScript ke projects that I had before, even getting into an internship, stuff like that.
Makes sense. Cool. I think I'll have one last question for you. I think you learned a lot in the 2 months that you were working at Spiky because you were under a lot of pressure and on things that you had never done before. Do you think if you didn't get into Spiky, you wouldn't have gotten here either?
Like I said the same in the meetup, ki everything is incremental. If I didn't get that internship, I won't have that podcast with you. If I didn't have that podcast with you, I won't have Tiplink. If I didn't have Tiplink, I won't have that kick in the gut that I got. If I didn't have that kick in the gut that I got, I wouldn't reach out to you for Super 30. If I didn't have Super 30, I wouldn't have Swifey. If I didn't have Swifey, then I didn't have Wildcard. And if I didn't have Wildcard, then I won't be anywhere. Like I won't have EXO. So it's incremental.
Got it. But does it make sense to work in that ugly internship?
Yep.
A stressful internship at least for 2 months?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say so.
Okay.
Because the learning that you get working under pressure would take a toll on your health or mental health, but 2 months is okay.
All right. Cool. Do you have anything else to add for folks?
Nothing as of now, but yeah, nothing else. Nothing as of now.
If you have more things, reach out to him on Twitter. With that, we'll end it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you.